Welcome to the Manifest Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Smith, certified spiritual life coach and NLP practitioner, bringing you all things motherhood, manifestation, and mental health. This podcast is for you if you're ready to expand your consciousness and stop losing your shit. Whether you're a mom like me out here trying to break generational curses, or you just want to learn how to take better care of your mind, body, and soul, you're in the right place. It's time to break free from your depression and anxiety and start creating a reality that you don't want to escape from. Let's go manifest mental health. Hey you guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about my journey from hoodrat to healer. I was not always on this spiritual journey. In fact, growing up, I went to church and stuff, but I didn't really know about the whole God thing. I didn't not believe in God, but I just kind of thought it was too big for me to understand, for anyone to understand. Like, how do they know? How do they know? And it wasn't until I felt God and saw him moving in my life that I believed in him and built this relationship with him. Definitely wasn't into all the manifestation and spiritual shit until 3 years ago. I was like, that's a little bit weird. I didn't really judge those people, but I just didn't resonate with it. I was like, that's not my path. Me, I'm a smoke an eighth a day. That's what I'm doing. And yeah. So I just wanted to really share with you about how I got there. Cause it's crazy. I never really thought that I would be here, waking up every day and praying first thing in the morning, listening to some songs about God, and just, it's a whole different lifestyle, you know? I'm still bumping Yo Gotti, Jesus from the ghetto, so am I, you know? But it's really a whole different lifestyle. It's like knowing you're connected to something greater brings you so much peace, and trusting you have someone. It's like you don't have to do it all by yourself. Because let me tell you, you can't do this shit all by yourself. You will drive yourself crazy trying to figure out this life without God, without connection to a higher power. I know a lot of people may be resistant to having a relationship with God because maybe they had a bad experience with religion, like going to church and didn't feel accepted there, or had someone in the church judge them. But that's not God. You know, that is their human ego projecting its bullshit onto you. That's not God, because God is a loving ass, come to me as you are kind of God. God knew you would go to the streets. He created you, and you and him had this agreement before your soul even incarnated in this lifetime. It was I'm going to go through this shit. I'm going to hang out in this hood. I'm going to learn these lessons, and then I'm going to become who God created me to be. So, yeah. Anyways, let me get into my story. I really didn't even grow up being in the streets. Actually, it started off I was super smart in school. My parents never thought I would be trapped out, Taylor. I was supposed to go to school to be a pharmacist. And, I did end up selling a lot of pills, but not legally. So let me just let you know how I got there. Actually, it probably started my senior year of high school. I got diagnosed with depression and social anxiety. I really diagnosed myself, reading that shit on Google. This is me. I got this. This is me. Because I used to feel paralyzed around other people. I was always worried about what people were thinking about me. I didn't know how to have conversations with people. I was just super socially awkward. And I'm still a little bit socially awkward. But I'm realizing just not everybody is my vibe. I'm not meant to be out here being social with everybody. Because your energy is precious and you got to save it for where it is appreciated. But anyways, I went to the doctor for this depression and social anxiety when I was like 17. And they prescribed me like Zoloft, I think. And I don't really know because I wasn't taking the antidepressants. I was taking the anti-anxiety medicine. I was prescribed Xanax when I was 17 years old. I took one and I felt pretty good, but then I saw that you could take more and feel even better. And I like got into this thing where I was taking 3 Xanax first period every day at school. They were like the peach Xanaxes, and I would be like, I'm feeling peachy today. And honestly, I did stop caring about what people thought about me, but I stopped caring about a lot of things, like everything. I was like falling asleep in my classes, and I was really smart, so I was like still passing, but I was making a lot of really fucked up decisions. Like, we'll get into that in another episode because I plan on having Xanax be its whole own episode because I want to show you like how to cope with your anxiety without that. But that Xanax is where it started. It opened up this portal for me. It was like I could escape this reality. And I was like, what other ways can I escape this reality? Because, reality, if you're living with depression and anxiety, it can feel like really hard. Like depression is like you don't want to get out of bed, and anxiety is when you do get out of bed, you're like not enjoying it here. It is not a fun life. I really think depression is caused by like thinking about your past, and anxiety is caused by worrying about your future. But anyways, I didn't know all that shit then. I was like, how can I escape this reality? Because my thoughts when I was in this reality were about, I didn't feel good about myself. I was always feeling like there was something wrong with me. Like, because of the whole not fitting in, being socially awkward. Like, no matter how good grades I made in school, I didn't make friends. I would look around and see people laughing with their friend group, and I just felt really out of place. I felt like I didn't belong here. And I had a lot of low self-worth because I struggled with my weight all of my life. And so another thing that took me to the streets was I also got on diet pills in my senior year of high school. So it was like, I can take these pills and lose this weight. I can take these pills and escape my mind and quiet all these thoughts. And like, I was, I got, that was fun. Like, it was like an easy way out. And I was like, what other ways can I escape my reality? What other things can I take to make my life better? Or to not deal with my life, really. But at the time, I thought I was making my life better. It was fun. And I started to sell some of my Xanax. I started to like hang out with my friends that sold Xanax, like that could help me sell the Xanax. And then I started to smoke weed with them. And I liked smoking weed too. It was like I probably still would like to smoke weed. I haven't been smoking for like 6 months because I'm trying to get focused on my purpose and launching this podcast. But yeah, weed was my thing. Like even more than the Xanax, the diet pills, or any of the other drugs, which we'll get to, that I tried, that was my thing. Like weed was there for me when nobody else was. And so I like dabbled in this stuff in the beginning of my senior year, but it was when I went to college and had like nobody bitching at me for coming in smelling like weed, nobody making me get up and go to class, nobody telling me what to do. I kind of had a sheltered childhood. Like my parents were, especially my dad, was pretty controlling. So it was like once that element of control was taken away, I didn't have any self-control. It was like I was trying to go out and do all the shit that I never got to do. And I was also in this really mentally abusive relationship. I think this is what triggered it for me the most. This is why I turned to the streets. was that I was in this really toxic relationship and I had my heart broken. I was going to school to be a pharmacist, and then this guy I was with, he lived like 2 hours away, and I would drive home every weekend to be with him. And he would like play these mind games with me. He would cheat on me while I was at school, and I would take him back over and over again because, you know, I didn't see my worth. And being with him was the closest thing I had felt to happiness besides like the drugs. It wasn't like a lasting happiness. It was a happiness that I was finding outside of myself, but he made me feel something close to love. And I thought it was love at the time. I couldn't see my life without him at the time. You know, when you're in that, like your first love thing, it gets you. You really get caught up in that. And it's kind of a codependent thing where your happiness is dependent on whether or not they choose you. So I just kept taking him back no matter how he talked to me because, you know, the way he was treating me wasn't any better than I was treating myself. And I kept taking him back, but it was really taking my self-worth like even lower and lower and lower every time that I took him back. And so I was getting really depressed, and I was always worried about what he was doing while I was at college. So I wasn't even worried about my classes. I was so worried about this guy and whether or not he wanted to be with me, and smoking a bunch of weed whenever he didn't, that I kind of gave up on school. Like I said, nobody was there to make sure I was going to class, and I just didn't have that discipline within me. I was way too depressed to get up and go. Like, I know if you're listening to this podcast and you struggle with depression, I know you know the thing, like, I'm not getting out of bed today. It's easier to lay here and sleep rather than to look at my life, get up and deal with my life in the state of how it is. It's just easier to sleep. Sleep was another way that I escaped my reality. There's like months of my life, it was like eat, sleep, smoke, repeat. Eat, sleep, smoke, repeat. Or like smoke. The eating normally came after the smoking, but smoke, eat, sleep, repeat. And that's what I was doing. Anyways, when I stopped going to my classes, no matter, like, I made a 30 on my ACT, you guys. I had a full ride to college, but I blew it. I dropped out of college probably like 10 times, actually. I had to come home, and I actually stayed with this guy for a little while. He lived with his parents, and yeah, but I came home to visit my mom on Mother's Day while I was staying with him, and I found out that he cheated on me while I was at my mom's house, visiting her on Mother's Day. And I had like an emotional breakdown. Like, I was outside when I found out, and I was like on the ground wailing around because it was like I gave up my life for him. And I was just like so fucking devastated. And I think in that moment I decided, like, fuck love. And the reason we say fuck love is because we feel like it's not available to us. We feel like we don't deserve it. We feel like, why even try? If this is what's going to happen when I open my heart, I'm not doing that shit anymore. So I put up all these walls around my heart, and like, really, I created this version of me that didn't give a fuck about love. It's like a coping mechanism. And the ego does this. It will like create a new version of itself. A lot of people create like a different version of themselves that they think is more deserving of love. Like, they try harder, they try to accomplish more stuff, they turn into people pleasers. But me, I turned into a version of myself where I just didn't give a fuck about love. I was like, I do not need love and affection. I need plugs and connections. And I found them. And it was a lot easier to find plugs and connections than it was for me to find love and affection at that time of my life, because really, love is not something you seek outside yourself. It's something that will be reflected back to you whenever you learn to love yourself. But let me tell you, 17-year-old Taylor did not know about that shit. She was rolling up. Let's roll up. I remember like me and my friend would go buy these pom-poms. This was our cigarillos. So we would be like, got 10 pom-poms, like a cheerleading squad. That was like my Facebook status one time. Like, it was just, I got immersed in that culture. I wish that, I'm not trying to like blame Lil Wayne or Wiz Khalifa for all of my poor choices, but I really don't know where I would have gotten all these great ideas about trapping and smoking weed 24/7 if I hadn't got so immersed in that culture. Thing is, like, the guy that broke my heart, he was like a really country guy. And I was like, no, we're not doing this no more. I don't want to listen to no kind of song that reminds me of him. Like, that's not who I am. Like, I am a hood ass bitch doing hood ass shit out here. And I really did. Like, I tried to go back to community college here in Blytheville, but Blytheville is the hood. Like, they call it Thug Town. There's literally these t-shirts in town that say Thug Town. It is the hood. And it was like a hood that my parents couldn't find me at. Actually, there was a time my mom found me there. But I started hanging out at like trap houses between my college classes. And yeah, like, I want to just be really transparent here. Like, that hanging out at the trap house was like the first time I ever really felt safe to be myself. And as crazy as that sounds, it's just like, there was no pressure to be anybody other than me there. Like, I wasn't trying to accomplish all these academic achievements. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. Nobody was in there telling me I needed to get a job like my motherfucking family all of my whole entire life, even now. But probably because they didn't have jobs either. But there was just like zero expectations there. And also, it was a vibe. Like, me and my drug dealers, we always vibed. I would sit in there and smoke blunts with them. And I didn't look like I fit in there. Like, the only fucking white girl in the hood of Blytheville. Especially the only one that's, like, kind of, you know, like, I don't know the word, but not trashy. The only just like regular white girl in the hood. The real white girl. The only real white girl in the hood. And, but I didn't look like I fit in there, but I felt like I did. And I think it's maybe I was like a drug dealer in my past life or something. But there was just like a soul resonance. And there's still like a soul resonance when I listen to trap music. Like, that is my vibe. That is, and I feel like each of our souls has a frequency. And it can be like from some shit that we did in our past life, or it can just be like what we're meant to experience in this life in order to grow. And I learned so many more lessons in the streets than I would have ever learned if I had actually showed up to my classes. Like, my soul didn't come here to be a pharmacist or an accountant. My soul came here to grow. My soul came here to go through some bullshit and like turn that bullshit into something beautiful. But I had to go through that bullshit first. So I started going to jail. Like, because, you know, the whole escaping your reality thing, you're possessing a lot of drugs, and possession, that is a charge. If they catch you, you go to jail. And I was also like driving fucked up a lot. I like wrecked like 4 cars. And my family got so tired of giving me like my grandma's old car, and she would go get another one. And I was never fucking grateful for that shit. Like, that's one biggest thing like the streets taught me, was like how to be grateful. Because I was a privileged ass little white girl. That's what I want to say about it. Like, just being real, like, my parents, they handed me everything. It was like probably them trying to give their kids the things that they never had growing up. Because my parents worked really hard to be where they are. Like, they both went to college and like became successful. That wasn't my path. That wasn't my path, but I never really learned how to work for things. And I just thought I was entitled to them because they were always given to me. I didn't know like how blessed I was. And I had to lose all that shit. I had that privilege stripped away from me in order to see that it existed, really. Because I would have just continued my life thinking that I was entitled to that stuff. I remember like being very attached to material things. Very attached. Like I wanted to have all name brand clothes growing up. There was like a time that I went to this school in high school that was kind of more preppy, and I didn't even want to wear the same shirt twice. Like I can't even believe that. I'm like a cartoon character now. I'll be wearing the same shit over and over again. Like, it's my favorite shirt. I'm wearing it again. But yeah, at one point in my life, that's who I was. And it's who I was conditioned to be. We get conditioned. And the streets have a big part in this. Even when I was in the streets in the beginning, I was conditioned to think that you need to drive a car that looks like this, or you need to have the new releases. There was a time in my life I was wearing Jordans. Always like trying to keep up with the hood. And like at first I was trying to be somebody that my parents wanted me to be, and then I was trying to be who I thought the streets wanted me to be. And now I'm in this point in my life where I'm trying to be who God put me here to be. And that one, that's the place you want to get to, because you'll never be happy out here trying to make other people happy. But when you do what God wants you to do, that's how you make you happy. Like when you make God happy, he gives you everything you need. Like he blesses you. Like, yeah. Anyways, where was I at in my story? I do this, you guys. I get off topic. So bear with me, but I'm getting somewhere. I was going to jail a lot of times. So life started to get even harder. Like, when you catch some charges, you start to feel a little bit hopeless because you get in this thing with the criminal justice system. And it's like, I got court. I got to go to this court date. And you start to feel stressed the fuck out. Like you want to avoid going to jail. Nobody wants to go to jail. And I started to like be scared that I would go back to jail. And I started to form this hate of the police, which we'll get into in another episode. That's a whole nother episode. That consumed my life for a long time. But I was catching these charges, and my reality started to be even shittier. And it became like I couldn't escape it anymore with what I've been doing. So I started doing even harder drugs, which I feel like was part of my karma for selling the drugs. I didn't even get into the part where my mom kicked me out. After I came home from school, me and my family had these really rocky ass relationships. And my mom kicked me out. We were always arguing. Like, she was always like, you need to get a job. Quit coming to my house smelling like weed. You know, I get it. Because they saw my potential and they saw I wasn't doing shit with it. And I get it now. But at that time, no, fuck you, bitch. You're the one that raised this entitled ass little child. You didn't teach me how to go get my own money. Like, take care of me. In my, like, wounded, super unhealed version of me. Yeah. So she put me out. And, like, one of my drug dealers felt sorry for me and let me live at his trap house. He didn't stay there. Like, it was not really a trap house. It was more like a place where they kept the drugs. And some certain crackheads could come there. And eventually I was like serving those some certain crackheads. The trustworthy ones that could know where the drugs were. And like we ran out one time and I had to like cook more crack in the microwave. You know that you could cook crack in the microwave? Do you know that my soul came here to cook crack in the microwave at one point in my life? Fucking crazy ass journeyman. Like, you never know. You never know where your soul is going to go in this journey. But yeah, there was a time in my life, I actually stopped doing cocaine in that stage of my life. I was like, I could sell this shit and make so much money. And then I was really listening to the trap music. I was like, I am a trapper. I was like a whole trap queen out here. And yeah. Anyways, I feel like me getting on the hard drugs was kind of like my karma from that. I feel like a lot of times you see a lot of drug dealers end up, their karma either be they go to prison, or their karma be that they end up getting high on their own supply, because I feel like we have to experience duality in this lifetime in order to really see the consequences of your actions. You have to see what life is like on the other side of that. So you can't really be out here destroying people's lives, which essentially, like, that's what we do. Whenever you're like selling hard drugs, like, people go and do that shit and then their life gets fucked up. And I know that like they'd get it from somewhere, but that somewhere doesn't have to be you. You have to be creating your karma at all. You have to realize you're creating your karma at all times. And if you're out here destroying people's lives, you're destroying yours in the process, because the energy you put out is coming back to you. And I had to experience that firsthand. I had to like see life on the other side of that, because for a while I was like getting money, at least helping this guy get money selling these drugs. And like, I thought that was my way out. I blew my scholarship. I didn't see. And that's what the culture will trick you into thinking, that selling drugs is a way out. Like, you'll hear all these Yo Gotti songs, or like you'll see people in the hood. And the thing is, people that live in the hood, they especially only see other people in the hood. Like, it's the environment becomes like a trap. That's literally a trap. Like, because you don't see the bigger picture. You don't see all the other opportunities that you have to make money. It becomes like this limiting belief that I have to sell drugs in order to make it out. And I got stuck in that. I was being programmed by all the music I was listening to, like all the people I was hanging around. Like, I thought that was my way out. But really, that is the way in to a jail cell. And that is the way into this thing with the criminal justice system, where it feels like there's no way out. Like, my friend told me what was it? Like, you go on vacation, leave on probation, and come back on violation. That's what the criminal justice system is like. It's like this repetitive cycle. And yeah, I really had like a thing with the criminal justice system. I was like, fuck this. Because when I had that white privilege stripped away from me, which you don't really realize it's a thing like until you go through this shit. And I had to go through this shit. But to see like justice isn't really a thing. It's not a guaranteed thing in the criminal justice system. Like, you can get some charges for some shit you didn't do and they don't care. And like, you can do jail time and not be guilty, and like, they don't care. Nobody cares about you. But you, like, not even you at that point. Like, really, that's where it took me. I was on these hard drugs. I started getting these charges that I wasn't even guilty of, and like feeling like there was no hope for me. I started to feel like I really thought I was going to do drugs forever. And I was actually facing prison time. And oh my gosh, I was like hiding from the police. It's a complicated story, but I was facing prison time. And so I didn't turn myself in because I didn't want to go to prison. And so then I was hiding from the police. And I remember the night before I was supposed to turn myself in to go to prison, I felt like this peace come over me. And it was kind of like I took a Xanax, but I hadn't taken a Xanax in probably a year and a half, because they started to get really hard for me to find. And I used to have a prescription, but my nanny like called my doctor and was like, no, because I fell asleep at a red light, which is a whole nother episode, you guys. But I hadn't taken one in probably 2 years. And I just felt this peace come over me. It was like I took a Xanax, except I wasn't fucked up. Except like I was sober. And I just knew that it was God. it was like this feeling of like, everything is going to be okay. I've got you. Like, I felt like this love, like I felt loved. And it was so strange because I was hanging around like these really very sketchy people, other drug doers. My life got really messed up when I was hanging around the other drug doers. But yeah. Anyways, back to like, I felt God. For the first time, I knew like that I was going to be okay, which was so weird because like earlier that day, I'd been stressed the fuck out. Like, I'm going to have to go to prison tomorrow. Like, I can't do this. Like, what's going to happen to me? And so the next day, like, I didn't go to court, and the police actually popped up looking for me at my ex-boyfriend's house that, like, I used to stay at. And, like, they were looking for me because I had this whole, like, thing where I was trying to expose the crooked police. We'll get into that in another episode. But I had this thing where I was trying to expose them. And so it was, like, for real. They were trying to lock me up. And the same drug dealer that let me live at his trap house, it was like 4 years later, because eventually he did kick me out of his trap house. But 4 years later, he felt bad for me again, and he took me to Chicago. In the hood of Chicago, his family had a house there, and they like had a basement that was just like empty. It was like a little apartment in the basement. And I stayed in this apartment in the basement of the hood of Chicago for like a month. And I had some drugs to take with me there, but this bitch stole them from me. I forgive her. This girl stole them from me. I forgave her. But yeah, I had like finally found some Xanax actually, and some meth that I was going to take with me to this basement of Chicago. And they got stolen. Right before I left. And so I had to go there with no drugs. And I was in that basement reading my Bible for probably a month. It was like God stripped away all of that stuff from me so that I could get closer to Him. And it was like the closer I got to God, the harder drugs were for me to find, even after I came back, because I was in that basement getting really close to Him. I was reading my Bible. I was praying. I was just like, and I felt hope for the first time. Like it was sucky, you know, like detoxing from the drugs. I didn't have any energy. I was eating a lot of food, but I felt like things might be okay for me. I was reading these Psalms in there about justice, about how, I think it's like Psalm 12. I'll put it in the show notes because I don't remember. It's been a while, but I remember like really being with those verses, pray for those who persecute you. And because I felt like I was being persecuted, like I was going to jail for some shit that I didn't really do. They were trying to send me to prison for, first of all, like I had taken my grandma's car without her permission. She did give me permission the day before, but the time that I took it, she did not. And she called the police on me. And so they charged me with like felony theft for this car. And then my grandma tried to drop the charges, but they wouldn't let it go. They were like, no, the state's already picked it up. You know, they want your money. They want your money. They want you in that system so that you're paying them fees. And yeah, they don't give a fuck about you. And then when I went to jail for that, like somebody bonded me out, and the person that bonded me out, I got arrested with them because we got pulled over and they didn't take their charge. It was like they had drugs in the car and they didn't take their charge. And so I was really in this repeating pattern of like where I was going to jail for stuff I didn't do. And now I look back and I see like that was God trying to remove me from the streets because He wanted me to get close to Him. I feel like we plug into the streets and we think that that's going to make us happy, but it's not. It's not like, and everybody that is out here in these streets and they have this clout, like they get a lot of likes on their shit on Facebook, or like they're selling a lot of drugs, they have a lot of money. Money doesn't make you happy. Like, you can have all this money, all these drugs, and at the end of the day, you still feel empty on the inside. And God filled this place in me that was empty. And yeah, back to, I was in the basement reading these Bible verses about praying for your persecutors and pray for those who persecute you. I called my prosecutor my persecutor. And I had this little prayer list. I was like, fuck the police. My cover photo on Facebook used to say, fuck the police. But then I was like, I'm going to say pray for the police instead. So I had this prayer list of all of the crooked police in Mississippi County. And I was like, I'm just going to pray for them. I'm going to forgive this bitch that stole all my drugs. And I'm going to pray for these police. And I am not religious anymore. But when I first felt God, that's what I was thinking that I needed to do, is like become religious. And I will say that path served me for a while. Like, getting close to God, no matter how you got to do it, just do it. He doesn't even care. Like, you can pray, you can read your Bible, you can do some yoga. He does not care how you get close to him. He just wants you to come to him. And in that basement of Chicago, in the motherfucking hood, I was coming to him. Like, I only really left to go outside, like, because in Chicago, they will ID you, like, walking down the street. And I didn't know that. I didn't even have an ID. And if they ran my name, they would see I had the warrant, send me back to Arkansas. So it was like really hiding from the police everywhere. And I know that God separates you when he's trying to elevate you, because you got to leave everything that you've thought was your life in order to find out what he has planned for you. And so I was in that basement reading these Bible verses. Like I said, the religious thing really served me for a while, because I did cut out a lot of sins. I was like, I don't want to do that shit no more. I had been stealing from my family. I stopped doing that. I stopped stealing at all. I really didn't steal from anybody other than my family. And it was like, I felt that they owed me. Because, you know, the whole I wasn't healed and the whole being entitled kind of thing. But I stopped doing that. I stopped sleeping with people, just like having random sex. I mean, I did sin again a couple months later and got pregnant with my kid. But yeah, I cut out a lot of the sins. I was still doing drugs. I eventually came back from Chicago. What happened was my prayers got answered. My family started to feel bad for me, and they helped me to get a lawyer. And I came home from Chicago, and I didn't feel like I had to hide from the police anymore. I still like had a lot of trust issues with people though. And so I would stay at home, and I just stayed to myself for a while. Like, I would randomly hang out with some people that did drugs, but I was doing drugs a lot less. It was like people stopped wanting to do drugs with me because, you know, I was probably talking about God all the time. I was literally out here hanging out with other drug doers, telling them about how God was coming back and we needed to get our life together. How Jesus was coming back. And I still do believe Jesus is coming back. I think it's like a consciousness, though, not a person. I feel like people are awakening to the interconnectedness of all things and like becoming more loving as humans. And yeah, a whole nother episode back to the how I unplugged from the streets was like God unplugged me from the streets. I had to plug into him. He's the source. He is the real plug. People think they have to turn to the streets in order to be happy. Whenever you deal with depression and stuff, it can be so easy to get another sack, like, and quiet those thoughts that come to your mind. But really what we need to do is turn to God instead and heal from the reasons that we're using the drugs. Like, God takes away the desire. Maybe not immediately, but like the closer you get to him, he'll show you other ways to be happy. And that's not real happiness. That's what you'll learn the closer you get to him, is that what you've been doing is not real happiness. I actually wrote this stuff down that God was encouraging me to go within, and maybe I needed to sit in a jail cell for that to happen, or else I would have always kept looking outside of me in the streets and to all the drugs I'd been buying and selling there to make me feel happy or whole. And we don't need to escape from our reality. We need to just realize that we're the ones that are creating it. Like, yeah, God is doing it, but you're also creating your reality with your thoughts, your beliefs, your habits, and you got to make some changes. Your environment, like you're a product of your environment. So if you stay in the streets, you're going to keep repeating that pattern because it becomes normal. Your subconscious mind normalizes that, and you kind of think that that's what you got to do in order to fit in. It's a survival thing. Back in the old days, we depended on our tribes to live. We traded goods and we all helped provide for each other. We gave each other food and clothing. And if you weren't accepted by the tribe, if you didn't live their way of life, then you would die. That's where the desire to fit in comes from. And if you stay in that environment, if you try to fit in there, you could die. Especially now with all that fentanyl and shit out there, you could literally die. If you don't change your environment, if you don't change your life, not only will you miss out on the life that God has for you, but you could miss out on your life in general. And you'll be back. You'll be back. I believe in reincarnation. I believe if we don't learn the lessons that our soul came here to learn, we reincarnate and those lessons are presented to us in another way, but we want to try and figure it out in this lifetime. We want to. All right. I'll just get off on these little tangents, but I'm just going to keep going, you guys, and bear with me. I have some ADHD. I'm not fully healed. But yeah, another thing I wrote in my book was we stop selling drugs, stop doing drugs, not because the government says so, but because you give a fuck about the energy that you're putting out into the universe and the substances you're putting into your body. The world deserves better and you deserve better. And my connection with God helped me to believe that, helped me to see that. And I always thought I needed to turn to the streets, but really I just needed to be on this spiritual journey. And sometimes your spiritual journey can take you to the streets. Sometimes you got to learn those lessons there. And for me, I had to. I really had to get in the habit of trusting God during this time of my life, be in full surrender mode. When you were out here facing prison time, when you were out here feeling like your life has no direction, you have to trust God. You can't trust yourself. You can't trust the criminal justice system. I couldn't trust all of my friends because I might catch a charge with them, or I might get fucked off out here fucking with people who don't care about their lives. And that's what I had to realize. But yeah, I couldn't trust anybody, and that's when I had to turn to God. I couldn't escape from my reality anymore, and I needed his help in order to face it. And I was in there praying. I was like, God, help me make a way. I did not know how I was going to provide for my daughter. I was homeless. I lost everything because that's what happens. And I'll get into that in another episode. But when you're out here in these streets, you keep going to jail. People keep stealing your shit. I lost everything. And especially I lost my hope. Until I found God, I lost my hope that things would get better for me. One thing that used to really piss me off, with my family, this is one of the biggest things that we always argued about, was that I had a drug problem and that I needed to go to rehab. And I was in that world because I had a mental health problem. I was always trying to escape my reality. And I was in the drug world because I liked to sell the drugs so I could buy more drugs. And it was a pattern. It was a lifestyle that I wasn't addicted to, but it was just who I thought that I was. And so we would argue all the time about I needed to go to rehab, that I had a drug problem. I would tell him, no, I have a mental health problem. It would piss me off so bad. So bad. But I always knew that if I just had a reason to stop doing drugs, then I would. And when I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter, that became like my reason. Not only to get sober, but a reason to like get happy, to heal from all the reasons that I used the drugs. And I remember like rubbing my belly in that jail cell and telling you, I promise you, I'm going to figure this out, little girl. I promise you. And sometimes God will give you something like that, something outside of yourself. Whenever you don't love yourself and God can clearly see you don't love yourself, He's looking down at you like, I love you so much. Can you just love you? Can you just decide that you deserve a better life than this? Because as soon as you decide, I'll give it to you. But if you don't see it, He's not going to give it to you, because then you might just fuck it up. You might not. Sometimes I feel bad about cussing and talking about God in the same sentences, but let me tell you, He knows my heart. He knows my heart. We have a connection like that. And that's another thing. God doesn't want you to be perfect or like some, oh Father, who art thou in heaven, hallowed be thy name kind of shit. Like, you don't have to be like that with Him. You can just come to Him as you are, from the trap house, from the jail cell. He just wants you to come to Him. And I was rubbing my belly in that jail cell, praying to God, telling my little girl, telling the little life growing inside me, like, I'm going to figure this out. God is going to help me figure this out. We're going to make a way. And a couple of weeks after I got released, my mom started being a little bit nicer to me, because, she wanted to be in the grandchild's life. People love grandbabies. Not saying that you should go get pregnant, but it really did help me. It really did help me a lot with healing my relationships with my family. It was an answered prayer. So never question how God answers your prayers. That's another thing I want to say, because she was an answered prayer. But anyways, my mom started being a little bit nicer to me, and we went to this bookstore in Memphis somewhere, and I was like drawn to this book. It said The Secret. It was like in the spiritual section. I also got a book about the chakras. I was never into this stuff growing up. Never. Like, no. That was not me. I'm telling you, I was trying to buy the cutest purses and like, no, it wasn't me. I was never into spiritual shit. But something called me to that book. And in that book, it was talking about like how our thoughts create our reality, about the law of attraction, about manifestation. And I was like, oh my God. It made so much sense to me, because I had been thinking these really fucked up thoughts all the time. I'd pretty much been manifesting myself back into jail over and over again, because I was thinking thoughts like, there's no way out for me. Like, that could put you on the vibration of there's no way out. Jail is like a vibration that you get on when you feel hopeless and like there's no way out. That's how I sent myself to jail. And I realized that the law of attraction had always been working in my life, because it is working in your life, whether or not you know about it. It's like a gravity. It's working. And so what you want to do is like really learn that shit and get it to work for you instead of against you. Because the mind is so powerful if we realize that we can use it to our advantage and like stop trying to escape from it, but start reprogramming it so that we can manifest a whole new life. Like when I read about manifestation, when I read that you had the ability to change your thoughts, that shit blew my mind. I was thinking that I was my thoughts my whole entire life. I was thinking that they are true. And you're not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts, and you have the power to change them. And it might feel hard, because it might feel like those thoughts are really true to you, and it's only because you've been thinking them for so long. And if you tell yourself new thoughts, you can start to feel a new way and create a whole new reality. So yeah, I started doing that shit. I started like telling myself new thoughts. And I read about manifesting a car, manifesting weight loss, and I got really into that shit. I remember like the first thoughts that I was telling myself over and over again were, I love my baby, because that was true. I love my family because I wanted that to be true. And I love everyone in the whole universe because, like, I also read, we're all connected. And I also wanted that to be true. That was like the reminder that helped me to heal so many toxic relationships in my life. I would be like, we are connected. I'm connected with this bitch that is talking shit to me. We are connected. I forgive her. I love her. But those affirmations, I would repeat them to myself every day. And slowly but surely they became true for me. Like, me and my family have a healthy relationship now. Like, they still don't get me. They still think I'm weird as fuck. They probably still think I need to get a job. But they are still Lyndi's grandparents, and they still keep her, and they help me a lot with her. And I learned to love them for who they are instead of like who I wanted them to be. I realized that I was never going to become who they wanted me to be. And I had to be cool with that. And when I became cool with that, they started to be cool with that. And God helped me heal so much stuff. God is what makes your manifestations possible. Your connection to Him is like what plugs you in and shows you which step you need to take next. For me, that step was reading The Secret. For me, that step was learning about my chakras and my energy, learning how everything is energy. And religion doesn't tell you this stuff. Religion helped me to cut out the sins and like realize that I wasn't doing it alone and like trust in something greater than myself. But spirituality helped me realize like, yeah, God can do a lot of stuff for me, but God also wants me to do a lot of stuff for myself. Like, God created this vibrational reality and He wants us to learn how to live in it, like to work with our own energy, to deal with our subconscious mind and reprogram it and deal with our thoughts, our beliefs, our habits, so we can become the version of us that He created us to be. That's what it's about. And whenever I read this stuff about manifestation, it was blowing my mind, and I didn't all the way believe in it at first, but the more that I saw it working in my life, I was like, holy shit. I used to like want to manifest pounds of weed, and because I had focused on it, that's what I created. And I mean, it came with a bunch of bullshit, like the going back to jail over and over again. But then I saw like, I can create something different. I can focus my attention on, I have a house for me and my daughter to live in. Our bills are paid. We have food in our refrigerator. These were things that I wrote down. Like, a lot of people will talk about like manifesting $1 million, but for me, I needed these basic things in the beginning. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially for this long, you probably might have been in a place, or maybe even be in a place where you do just need those basic things. And just having those would make you feel so much better. And I want to let you know, don't judge yourself where you're at in your journey. Like, your parents could tell you that you need to have your shit together, you should have a car, a job, and you look around at everybody else and they do, but your life is just on a different timeline. God is taking you on a different journey. Your soul is here learning different lessons than them, and you got to stop judging yourself for where you're at. The only way to manifest a life that you love is to start loving the life that you have. And stop being like, why does this shit keep happening to me? Before learning about spirituality, even when I believed in God, I was still living in victim mentality. I was like, God, save me. Save me from this criminal justice system. Save me from my parents. Save me from all these people around me that keep doing me wrong. But then in spirituality, like, I learned to take that power back. And I was like, God, help me save myself. Help me show up as the version of me that doesn't have all these problems. Help me manifest these things. Like, I went from being homeless and on those 3 to 4 different kinds of drugs, always trying to escape my reality, to like where I wake up and most days, I'm not going to say I have it all figured out. I still have some bad days, but like most days, I do love my life. And I especially trust in God's plan for my life right now. Like, especially because He's proved to me over and over and over again that He knows what He's doing. Even when I feel like He doesn't, He does. And yeah, I've accomplished so much for myself since learning about manifestation. Like, it's been a life-changing thing for me. I've lived in this apartment for 3 years now, and like I have this little setup where I have my heat press. I manifested everything that I need to start my business, like in the most miraculous ways. I lost 80 pounds. I I learned how to be happy. That's just like the number one manifestation, is that I learned how to be happy, because that's all I ever wanted, you know? That's the reason we do the drugs, is because they make us feel something close to happy for just a little amount of time. And we know it's not going to last. We know when it's gone, we're going to feel all the bullshit again. But, you know, that's what we're going for. And I learned how to be happy without drugs. So, biggest number one manifestation. I also manifested all of my charges being dropped. It feels so good to be broken free from that reality, like, of the criminal justice system. And these were things that I wrote down in this manifestation book, and they all have come true for me. So I really wanted to start this podcast to let you know, like, if this stuff can change my life, like me going from feeling like there was no hope to me knowing that God has got me, I want you to know God has got you too, and that He has a beautiful life planned for you on the other side of your struggles. But you do got to come to Him. He does have this plan for our life, but we got to tap into it by connecting to Him, by praying to Him. Like, we have free will. He gives us free will, and you have to use that free will to connect with Him, and also to do that inner work. Like, God will do all the outer work. He'll shift everything in the universe to make stuff happen for you, but you got to deal with your inner world. You got to deal with your thoughts, your beliefs, and your emotions, because that shit is also creating your reality. Your vibration creates your reality. So I feel like we need both. We need the connection to God, and we need the connection to ourselves. It's really the same thing, but that's a deeper subject. I just want you to know, like, you have to go within. Like, you can't expect God to do everything for you. That you have to meet Him halfway. And yeah, I know I've got kind of all over the place, but I really just wanted to record this episode and let you know why I turned to the streets and why I turned away from it, and let you know that there's a better life for you. I'm actually working on this coaching program, this course, where I teach you how to plug into your purpose, how to disconnect from the streets and connect to your soul. Because one of the hardest things for me was like deprogramming from who culture had made me think I was supposed to be, and connect to my true self. Because you didn't come here to do drugs forever. You didn't come here to sell drugs. You came here to make a difference in this world. Like, maybe that's a part of your path, but that's not your forever. That's not your happy ending. Like, you do have a completely different purpose for your life. And most of the time you go through that shit so that you can be the light and show somebody else, like, there's a way out. So I'm actually certified in this thing. It's called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is a really fancy way of saying I know how to speak the language of your subconscious mind. Whenever you speak the language of your subconscious mind, you can, like, uncover limiting beliefs in there. You can learn how to shift your emotional state, which is really your vibration. It helps you to reprogram your mind to create the reality that you want. Realize, like, how your subconscious mind is creating the reality you have, and then learn how to reprogram it to create the new reality. And really, we're just going to, like, bring awareness to the patterns that keep repeating in your life, because all the time we're going through these repeating patterns, because we're supposed to learn lessons from the patterns. And if we don't learn the lessons, we'll repeat the pattern in a new way, because God is really trying to just send that lesson through there for us. We got to learn the lesson. So I'm going to help you realize what you're going through is trying to teach you, so that you can stop having to go through it. I've actually created this 12 steps to healing program, because I went to an NA meeting because I was, like, going to try and, you know, help people that are getting sober. I want to be of service, but I did not fit in there. It was not my vibe. At the beginning of every meeting, you have to say, my name is so-and-so and I'm an addict. And no, the fuck I'm not. Like, my name is Taylor and I used to do drugs. But they weren't really cool with that. You can't share a meeting unless you say I'm an addict. I don't want to teach people to say that they're an addict, because I am are the two most powerful words that you can use. And you are not your programs. That's another thing we do in NLP, is like you separate the behavior from the person. That is a coping mechanism that you picked up in this lifetime. It is something your brain does to seek out pleasure and avoid pain. It's not who you really are. Like, you can learn other coping mechanisms, and like, I don't even never think about doing drugs. That is not who I am. That's not who I was. I want to help people to realize that that's not who they are, and also to remember who they really are. Like, connect with who God created you to be so that you can call in the life that He has for you. And I created this 12 Steps to Healing program. I'll probably cover those 12 steps in another episode, because I feel like I've been talking a long ass time. But if you're interested in that, you feel like you might have been to an NA meeting, or you might have been to a rehab and you've been like, this is not the path for me. But you do have to already be sober in order to like be in this little trial run of my program, because I can't convince you to be sober. Like, life has to convince you to become sober. No matter how many times people would tell me that what you're doing is causing chaos in your life, I had to realize that for myself. And so you'll have to realize that for yourself. And when you do, and you are ready, you're like, I'm ready to go all in. I'm ready to learn manifestation. I'm ready to go on this spiritual journey. I'm ready to unplug from the streets and plug into my motherfucking purpose. That is when this is for you. But reach out to me, because I really want to take people through these 12 steps. These are the steps that I took that helped me to stay sober and help me to, become this version of myself. And it's the version like who I really have always been. It's like you become this perfect version of yourself, but you forget who the world made you be, and you become like who your soul came here to be. And your soul came here to be happy. Your soul came here to heal. It didn't come here to like be a victim of all the circumstances in your life. It came here to take its motherfucking power back and create a reality that you don't want to escape from. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, or I'm going to put my email in the show notes. Really, email would be the best way. I might even make an application for this, because I really only want people that I can tell you're all in, because I'm going to be investing my time and energy, and I need to know when you're going to invest your time and energy and really put in the work. Because manifestation might make things come to you easier, but even manifestation requires you to do the inner work. You have to deal with your thoughts, your beliefs, your habits, and sometimes that can be even harder than like going to a real job, because you got to deal with yourself. You got to face the ways that you're holding yourself back. You got to take responsibility for the role that you're playing in creating your own suffering. And I'm here to help you, though. I got you. The spiritual journey can feel lonely as fuck, because God does separate you, but it doesn't have to be, because there are other people out there that are on spiritual journeys too. And I want to be that person for you. Like, you don't have to go through this by yourself. I don't want you to have to make my same mistakes, because I made a lot of mistakes. I don't see them as mistakes now, because I was learning and growing, but I could have did this shit a lot quicker if I had somebody to show me the way. And I really want to do that for you. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you for listening to me ramble. And yeah, I love you. If this episode helped you, take a screenshot and post it to your stories, or send it to someone else that you know that needs to hear it. I'm trying to raise the vibration of the planet and show people how to manifest a reality they don't want to escape from. So please share this shit. Also, if you like the podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button to be notified whenever a new episode comes out. And you guys, I'm going to be sending out a free t-shirt to the first 25 people who leave me a review on Apple Podcast. So in order to claim that t-shirt, you're going to take a screenshot of your review before you press post, and then you're going to send that screenshot along with your t-shirt size to taylor@everythingtailored.com. And tailored has 3 D's in it. So you're going to want to look at the show notes to make sure you get the correct email. I'm so glad that the universe brought us together and that you found this podcast and that it found you. And also that you've been listening for this long. And if you're still here with me, just know that I love you and I'm excited to stay connected with you. All of my social media links are going to be in the show notes. I don't really show up on there that much, but you can reach out to me on there. Have a blessed rest of your day. I love you. Bye.